All right, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order and pause for a moment of silent reflection. Very good.
Well, we went.
Okay. Carrie, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Willie, will you lead us in a roll call and determination of quorum?
Be glad to. Steve Denny.
Here.
Jerry Burmeister.
Here.
Ryan Williams.
Here.
Corey Hall.
Here.
Marissa Skaggs.
Here. 5 of 5 members present. We have a quorum. Approval of minutes from the March 4th meeting. Any questions, comments, concerns about those?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve and I have a second. Is that-
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor of approval of the minutes from March, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carried unanimous. Okay, we don't have a clerk treasurer's report. We are still closing out the year and dealing with some accounting situations that we're waiting on Reading to get a few things done, so hopefully next month we will have several of those for the previous months. We will go on into it. Willie, anything else you want to add for clerk
No,
treasurer's
no,
report? Okay.
you hit it all.
Okay, then we will go into department reports for April. And we'll start with Mark.
Scared me there for a minute. This is a report for March.
Yes, sorry.
There we go. Simply at the police department, we've had a lot of visits from the Growing Place School, autistic children. The goal there to bring them up and acclimate them to uniforms and squad cars and lights and sounds. So in the event we ever have to go to their home, they're not as scared. And then after they leave us, they get to go to Twisters. So it's a good day.
It's a win-win. Wow.
Yeah, it's a win-win for the Growing Place School students. And then on March 12th, we conducted low light shooting out at the state police range, utilizing the weapons, the handguns, the pistols, rifles with our tack lights and lasers at night. And everyone did well and nobody got shot. So it was a good night too. Total dispatch recorded calls for the month of March, 1,588 were filtered through dispatch. 14 crashes, 4 ordinance citations, were 1 ordinance citation. Adult criminal arrests, 80. Juvenile arrests were 0. Indiana code warnings, 116. Indiana code citations, 115. A lot of times in a traffic situation, we'll throw some warnings along with citations. So that's why those numbers usually follow each other. And then the 80 adult criminal arrests. It's a whole bunch of traffic stops with drugs for some reason recently. We've had a lot of meth, we've had heroin, we've had mushrooms the other day, we had acid the other day. I don't know if that was in preparation for the eclipse, but we got it before they sold it. So, and a lot of it has been recovered with weapons also. So we've had a lot of guns go through as well. But the guys are still out using the flock equipment. That I still believe is a good thing that we've purchased. Are you familiar with flock? Did we do that before or after you guys?
Can't remember, but I'm familiar, but
Yeah.
familiar.
Yeah, come on up and visit anytime. We'll show you how it works. It's pretty slick. So, that is it.
Chief, how did the eclipse day go for you?
So I was reading comments on Pelham Chatter and I saw where some people were bashing town folk for blocking parking lots and not being hospitable. I personally thought it was great. By not being a draw, we didn't draw issues. So we didn't have the traffic burdens other communities have. We didn't have the trash. We didn't have the trespassing or anything like that. From what I saw, those that came to town, which we saw a lot of out of state plates, enjoyed their time in town. And it was a good day. I saw the Kellys wearing aluminum hats and I enjoyed that. And then Mystic Waters, of course, because they're that type of an event venue, they had a crowd, but even it wasn't busting at the seams. So personally, I believe Pendleton reacted and had a good day. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Great. Any questions for Mark? Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Aaron, with the park report?
Good evening. Not much to add outside of what's in my report, other than the water's up. So, the trails are closed at this point, and probably we're gonna have nice weather this weekend, but we'll probably do our best to keep them closed because those low areas will still be a mess, but, other than that, any questions for me?
Any questions for Aaron?
Keep up the good work, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks, Aaron.
I believe Hannah Rose is on Zoom.
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thanks, Hannah.
All
Do you
right.
want to do your planning report?
Yeah, so we got awarded food and beverage tax grant money. So I am releasing the application for facade grants tomorrow. I just updated it with some of Carrie's language because there are tax benefits that some folks might qualify for when they rehab a building. So we wanted to make sure we included that information in the application. But our first round is 125,000, and we'll get the other half before the end of the year. So that's exciting. We had a great use of that with the last round that we had. I'm sure a lot of you have noticed a lot of the improvements were with facade grant money. So it's a great program. We had one primary plat submit that was for Baker's Point. They did that on April 1st, so I know it's not technically March, but close enough. And they will be at the May 1st meeting with that primary plat, and that'll be just in Planning Commission. Community Health on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, which again, I know is not March, but they got their site and their building approved. They had a pre-con meeting with us, and they are looking to break ground, very soon. So that medical facility will be up and running. I'm hoping by the end of the year, but I know that there's factors that we can't always foresee. The falls, we've had a lot of issues with the roadways in that subdivision. I think since I started here, but we've gotten in touch with the developer and we have a schedule to repave and fix the roads that they just told me today would probably be May 20th. So we're going to be doing a before, during, and after inspection. They're also posting a bond for that, which is great. So that'll be good to get finally fixed. I know the road in there is not terrific. And last thing that I have is grants. We recently applied for a downtown revitalization plan update grant from Okra. It was completed, but we didn't have any consultants basically send us interest letters or bid packets. So we're gonna have to move that to the next submittal window, which is Q3, July, August timeframe. And we're gonna send out the application to quite a few more consultants to see if we can get someone. But it's not completely unheard of for that to happen. But unfortunately we didn't have any interest in it, but I'm sure we'll find someone in Q3. But other than that, pretty busy month. So we're just moving right along. Anything else for me?
Any questions for Hannah Rose? Thanks, Hannah.
Uh-huh.
Right, Scott, town manager's report.
Okay, so just starting off where Mark left off about the eclipse. So it went really well, mostly because the weather was in our favor. It was nice everywhere, so people stayed dispersed and we didn't have the horror stories. The businesses were split, just so you know. Some businesses are like, look, town, don't have an event because then you're going to distract from the event I'm having. And then there were some businesses said, let's have an event because that'll attract, traffic to my small business. Well, the town never does events. Everybody has that perception. We don't do events. Nonprofits do events. We just support them. And had we done an event with town staff, we wouldn't have had the staff to take care of the problem if we would have had congestion. So the answer to all that and how it was pretty obvious on which way we would go with our strategy, and our strategy was to stay flexible and hope the weather would not be partially cloudy and feel like half the world is trying to move around Indiana to trying to find a nice spot to look at the eclipse. So that's really when you run into trouble. So anyway, it worked out really well. Our guys got to pretend like they were firemen for a day and sit around and do nothing and wait for the call.
Oh, jeez.
Oh,
Most of the guys didn't like that. They like to stay busy. So anyway, okay, so what's the major activities? Elm Street, drain reconstruction, it's, full go right now. They're about halfway down that railroad bed. Unfortunately, this heavy rain, caused some issues for one house so far. You know, when something's under construction, that's when you're most likely to have some flooding, and then especially if it's construction to alleviate flooding, right? Because you're ripping out an old pipe and putting in new, and the new's not working yet, and the old's definitely not working. So, just our luck will probably be the town or the contractor will probably be buying some new carpet here shortly. 24 repaving, we did the pre-construction meeting. We're all looking forward to that. We're gonna get additional bids, as some of you know, to chip and seal the cemetery. And also we decided, because of a local event, that we've been asked to get the alley fixed up for, and that's just a little strip of this alley right here, but by the juice bar. So we're gonna pave a little bit of that. The salt barn, the bids are out. So hopefully that gets all built before we need salt in the winter. It's gonna be close. If a couple issues happen, then we may have to wait late in the winter to load the salt barns up with the salt. If you don't know, we're trying to make the stoplights, these two stoplights here in the downtown smarter and talk to each other and be able to adjust based on the traffic with modern technology. They don't use the little laser lights anymore. They use actually cameras. The cameras count how many cars are backed up and that sort of thing. So we're starting to move towards improving that. We got to pick the Oak Tree Superheroes poster contest. Was just this week. That was sort of fun, and that the winner, I think her picture's here in a little bit, I'll show it to you. But she got to move on to the state, and then for the 14th year in a row, we were awarded Tree City USA. If you go to the next slide, which I think is the photos. And there's our winner in the middle, and she's representing us right now in Indiana. And then if you go to the next slide. This is my last town council meeting because she's taking over. And then the next photo is this street. So to the left, it's West Street at Tile, and it's Kyle Smith's development. And if you get a chance, go back there and look, because it is absolutely beautiful. He only has one more house under construction. And that street is just so pleasant. And if you remember, that used to be just a field. Before it was a field, it was a landfill. And to see it transition from just an empty field that everybody knows stories about, you know, roof tile and everything buried in concrete and everything to what it's turned into, it's very, very, very pleasant. I think I don't think I have anything else after that, right? Nope, that was it. Job well done by everybody during the eclipse. Any questions for me?
Scott, you had mentioned stoplights down by the post office. Is there still plans there to put the crosswalk like we have here in this corner?
You mean
There's
to
so many
paint it?
people cross right there.
Yeah, to paint it.
Safety is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. So we're gonna enhance that. A lot of the striping that we put in during the winter was temporary. in anticipation of what may happen here. We'll put, when we stripe it this time, we'll put in thermoplastic. We may have to put, maybe cut into the asphalt a little bit and run some, conduit between the lights and whatever. And then we're also gonna have press buttons so people can cross. And then we're gonna also some smaller versions of that. I should have brought a picture. There, a lot of times they're just run by solar panels. We plan on putting some of those there at the fire station on State Street, and then one at the junior high where they cross from the junior high over to the athletic fields. That's a problem area that we need to enhance. Probably there at East Street and State because of the school crossing. I think there's one more, but so anyway, if you've got any ideas where you think we need a press button that where the strobes start flashing, has a pedestrian crossing light. We'd probably look at putting one here, right at the playground.
I think as the town continues to grow, that's a great idea.
Yeah, we've just had too many close calls lately to not get aggressive about this issue.
Thank you.
Anything else for Scott?
Oh, you know, there is one more thing, Brian, when you looked at me, it reminded me. So, so we're aware of an issue where some people weren't aware that they had a stormwater assessment. I've met with Rick Gardner's office, and we're addressing that. And basically everybody who had a penalty for that, the penalty will be forgiven and in mass, digitally, and then if they already paid that, the credit will roll over to the next year. The only thing left to do is to the county's billing vendor is to make sure that everything's set with them. But anyway, if you get any more questions about that, that's the general plan for right now. And I can't imagine there's anything that's a showstopper. We may have some little minor issues, but that's the general scheme that we're going to try and do.
And tax bills have gone out, so you'll probably be getting that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got mine today, but I know some people got them yesterday. So just be mindful that if you have questions, call Scott or call me. We kind of understand how the series of unfortunate events occurred.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I thank you privately, Scott, but say to everybody else, a business here in town reached out to me and was very confused, and I sure didn't know the answer, and Marissa and Scott enlightened me, but thank you again, Scott, for jumping on it so quickly.
No problem.
great. Dawn, if we could go down to the Pendleton RDC April reporting requirement, that's the next item. Scott, do you want to talk about this?
So this is required by state law. It's on your iPads, and then we don't really need to go into it unless you have questions, but basically it just tells how much money we have in the fund, and it lists the parcels, which is one of the requirements. These are our 10 parcels. And then it just shows the revenue and then what expenditures the RDC have. We're required to do that during this council meeting.
Steve, anything to add? You're on the RDC.
I don't.
Okay.
It's pretty self-explanatory.
Do we have to vote to accept this or you can?
Just acknowledge receipt of the
Okay.
report.
I will let the minutes reflect that we received this and that we acknowledge that we viewed it. Okay, next on the agenda, we have a vacancy on the park board. Anna Blake, who has been our president and then also our vice president on the park board, is unfortunately moving out of Fall Creek Township, so she has to vacate her position. She's been a great park board member for a number of years. Brian probably knows how long, but as long as I've been here, Anna's been on the park board and has been a great member, and she helped for many years with the farmers market. And so we're sad to see Anna depart. And so we have a vacancy on the remainder of her term, which runs through December 31st of 2026. And I would make a nomination that the person who takes the remainder of her term is Drew Holloway, Pendleton resident, and he works out of the Muncie area DNR office. In talking to Coco, who is the president of the park board, they recently did a strengths and weakness analysis regarding their board member and their board structures. And one of the areas that they looked at that they felt they needed more representation or more of a knowledge base on was the natural resources of the park. And so this fits into that seamlessly. Aaron, anything you would like to add about that strength and weakness analysis you guys did for the board?
No, I think Drew's a great fit to slide in there, so we'd be thrilled to have him.
Okay. Do we have to have a motion or anything? Okay, so I would entertain either an additional nomination from the floor or a motion for approval of Drew Holloway taking Anna's spot on the park board.
Make that motion. For Drew to replace on it. I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for the nomination of Drew Holloway joining the park board for an appointment ending December 31st, 2026. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Great. Next up, we have our community development coordinator, Carrie Craig, who is going to do a presentation on Stellar Pathways.
Thank you, Madam President, and members of the town council. I'm here this evening on behalf of the Madison County Stellar Pathways Consortium, which is a local effort to become one of 2 counties in the state to be designated as a Stellar Pathways designee or community. The town of Pendleton is one of 12 communities or units of government participating in this consortium, along with several other civic organizations throughout the county, including the South Madison County Community Foundation, the Pendleton Chamber of Commerce, and Main Street Pendleton. All of you have a copy of the slide presentation, and I will email to you my presentation notes to your town council emails so that you have the in-depth presentation. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on each of the slides. I'm just going to kind of mention those in my presentation and just kind of highlight the main points, just so that we, or at least I can get out of here a little bit early. So this is just an informational presentation. The council does not need to pass a resolution for Pendleton to participate in this opportunity. There will be a letter of support from the town council president, which will be standard throughout all of those 12 participating units of government. And that will be sent with the initial letter of intent, which we'll be filing on May 1st. So in January of this year, Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, she announced the rollout of the Stellar Pathways program. Stellar is just another iteration or an outgrowth of the Stellar's community program that started back in 2011. The program ceased operation in 2019, and again, she brought it back online this year, and it's administered by the Indiana Office of Community Rural Affairs. The program's focus has moved from individual communities. I apologize, I am not a technology guru here, so from cities and towns to county boundaries, and a consortium of communities and civic groups. Its purpose is to promote a shared vision for the community and economic development, to promote local and regional partnerships, and implement sustainable solutions to the challenges facing our rural communities. Stellar requires a county-wide lead effort, and so that group that is leading the effort here in Madison County is the Madison County Chamber of Commerce. HWC Engineering has been brought on board as well to help with the coordinating efforts. I think one of the exciting aspects of this endeavor is the participation of, as I mentioned, of 12 communities from all over the county, both north and south. And those listed on the 5th slide in the packet. So there you see all of the communities that are at the table. Someone said that this was the first time in the history of their work in politics where all of these communities had come together focused on a long-term vision for our county. You'll see the absence of Anderson. Anderson is considered an entitlement community. It receives community development block grant funds directly from the federal government. So it is unable and it's not allowed to participate in this program. Pendleton will be required to make a 5-year commitment if we're awarded the Stellar Pathways program. And this program includes capacity building training, community engagement strategies, asset identification, and project prioritization and implementation. And so the state is making about $14.5 million available. That $14.5 million will be divided equally by the among the 2 counties that will be the final grantees. And so this is the amount of money that each state agency is putting up. It's not really, they're actually not appropriating these dollars. Most of these dollars are all federal funds. And so they're setting aside this money for the 2 final applicant communities. So to be, for example, Okra, it'd be 4 million for one county, 4 million for the other county, for example. And so you see a list there of the monies that we will be available to apply for. So it will not be the county will not apply for these monies. If Madison County, for example, is designated as a stellar community, each community will figure out what programs they want to apply for, and we'll make those applications directly to those state agencies. I think so there is a question about match. There is a cash match that will be required for almost all of these actual grants. And so that's something that we as a community will have to, I think, kind of wrestle with when we move forward, if we receive that designation. It is going to be, obviously, that is on the minds of a lot of those other smaller communities of whether or not they'll be able to really go after much of this funding. And so we really have to be selective about what we, apply for and put, in terms of what we put on our plate. And so these are the eligible projects within these 3 areas: enhancing quality of place, promoting community wellness, and strengthening local economies. And so in my conversations with both Scott and Hannah Rose, I think what the town of Pendleton will concentrate on is enhancing our quality of place through streetscapes, trails, sidewalks, bridges, and gateway beautification. And then on strengthening our local economy with an eye towards small business revolving loan fund possibly, and entrepreneurial ecosystem development. And of course, we will align all of our funding with the various community plans that we have in place or are preparing. So in terms of a timeline, the first stage in this process, as I mentioned, is the letter of intent, which is due to the state on May the 1st. HWC is working on that. They're working now with the community to collect a lot of information. I've been preparing that information for Pendleton. That includes a list of all of our current plans that we have in place, all of our current projects that date back 3 years, and as well as our engagement with the community over the past 3 years. So that information is due to HWC this coming Monday. Once we submit that, then we'll know in June. 4 counties will receive an initial designation to then receive a $50,000 planning grant to develop what they call strategic investment plans. And we'll have until November to put that plan together as a county. And we'll submit that in November. And then our team will have to then go and to an in-person presentation before the selection panel. Final announcements will be made in January 2025. And then we will have each community within the county will have up to 4 years to submit their grant applications to earn the designation of a stellar community. So some of these other slides talk about what goes into that letter of intent. I'm not going to go into detail on that and some of the measurable outcomes that we've discussed as a consortium. We think, data tells a story, and the story of Madison County is, well, it's a persuasive story, I would say. Purdue University Center for Regional Development publishes the community vitality indicators, which are based on the U.S. Census Bureau's most recent census data. And in 2021, Madison County ranked 64th out of 92 counties based on a combination of factors, placing us just barely inside the third tier. So if you look at the counties, you'll see that we're in the orange or the third tier. And according to these rankings, it's fairly dire. We rank 67th in the number of public high school graduation rates. We rank 81st in the gross assessed value per capita, and we rank 78th in per capita personal income as a county. Now, what I will say is that this data includes statistics from Anderson, and I'm not knocking Anderson. We've agreed as a consortium that, we think these statistics will make us much more competitive in regards to other counties that are submitting their applications as well. So there is good news in that, there are opportunities that abound. So these are some of the metrics that we think that we should strive to maybe improve on a countywide basis: population growth, per capita income growth, increased employment opportunities, certainly educational attainment increases, affordable housing units. There is a childcare capacity problem in the county that folks feel that needs to be addressed, and then also an increase in private investment. And then each community was asked to present an inventory of its strengths and some challenges. For Pendleton, we saw in terms of our strengths, dedicated leadership, parks and recreation, the South Madison County Community School Corporation, as well as a growth mindset. And then our strengths too were with our historic assets, solid planning documents and processes, as well as our events and festivals. In terms of challenges, we mentioned infrastructure issues, certainly growth pressures, and then funding and money that's available to alleviate some of these challenges. And then just another unique challenge that we thought we had here in Pendleton was more nightlife activities that we felt were needed. So in conclusion, the Madison County Stellar Pathways Consortium believes it's in a strong position to be one of the 2 recipients of this award. We're excited that the program has developed in what we hope will become a long-term opportunity to strengthen bonds between our communities and our residents, focusing on a shared vision for our county's long-term future. Happy to answer any questions. And again, I'll share these notes with you.
Any questions for Carrie? Anybody have any questions?
How was that put together, the matrix of strength and weakness?
So some of them it was sent out by HWC, and we were given certain strengths, certain challenges to select from. Others were open-ended. Thank you.
Great, thanks,
Thank you.
Carrie. And King, thank you for being a part of that group. It's gonna be interesting what all comes out of it and
Keep
whether
up
we
the
get
good
selected.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Moving on, we have resolution 2405, additional appropriations for public safety and general fund transfer. So with that, I will open the public hearing on these 2 additional appropriations. The first one is for $47,150 to be moved from the unappropriated public safety lift fund to the public safety expendable fund. And the second one is the unappropriated general fund going to the fund that allows us to transfer it, that $91,273 to the South Madison Fire Territory for the purchase of the ladder truck. Any public comment? Any comments from council?
Jake, and you can answer this. I mean, the 91,000 wasn't just for the ladder truck. It was also for all the equipment basically to stop that truck. Keep that truck in service so we didn't have to take another truck out of service.
Yeah. The self-contained breathing apparatus being one of the bigger items on that list. But Sawzalls, like all kinds of stuff that seemed like we didn't want to run the risk of going, oh, that's on the other truck and we don't have that. So,
Unfortunately, in the fire and police boat, everything costs so much money. Yeah.
Definitely not cheap.
Guys, yeah.
any other comments before I close the public hearing? Okay, with that, we will close the public hearing on resolution 2405 additional appropriations. And I will entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion for approval.
I have a motion for approval of resolution 2405. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 2405 additional appropriations for public safety and general fund transfer. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carried unanimously. Okay, next up, we have resolution R 2406 to sell police surplus vehicles to Anderson University. This seems like it's kind of a purchase agreement type. They
It
will
is.
sign it and then it'll go over to AU, is that correct? And they'll sign it and then we will convey those vehicles to them.
Yes, they're intergovernmental transfers and this is gonna be used for their police department. So they're a governmental entity in that regard, and as long as substantially similar resolutions are passed by both government bodies, the terms are completely up to the two bodies, the State Board of Account. The state doesn't trust us to wheel and deal with other governmental entities fairly, so this is that's what in front of you, and the deal that was presented to me by Captain Trailers. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Last chance. Yeah. Last chance, grab one of the other police cars.
I don't, that's what you like, not, don't make me make this right now.
I have a question just about the value of it. Is that what the assessed value of that car is? 5,000 for 2 cars?
Did you not know
He-
opposed to trade in that?
He looked at it.
It's close.
It's, yeah.
How many miles do these two vehicles have?
Lucas went through that. I think he looked up, tried to find similar vehicles or even went to Blue Book, but I don't know.
I wouldn't know if the mile, offhand what the mileage is on, it. It's not listed.
Make sure they're 6 digits.
You have to remember, if it says 50,000, it's ran 12 hours of
Mhm.
4-day shift almost around the clock, so the hour meter be a better gauge of its mileage, especially during the winter. They sit outside and run, well, with the computer equipment now, they run the whole shift. Because you can't, they can shut the cars down, it shuts all the computer and stuff down.
They're Fords, aren't they?
These are the Explorers.
Huh?
These are the Explorers, yes.
The black.
That's why they're so low in value.
Oh,
Well-
Pacific.
Well, we just had to put a new transmission in one of the brand new Durangos, so,
I know.
yeah. It was under warranty, it didn't hurt you.
Jake got the Tahoe and come out the best.
Great. Okay,
You got a motor sitting somewhere?
are we done
Yeah.
kicking the tires on these 2018 Ford Police Interceptors? Anything else anybody wants to add? Okay, with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of resolution 2406, selling surplus police vehicles to Anderson University. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Does that then just go back to, I think so, yeah. Okay. Ordinance 2404, amending ordinance 2010-06, the HPC guidelines.
Yeah, so this is the ordinance that established the HPC. It, like the UDO, ordinances need review every now and then. This one hadn't been reviewed in about 15 years, so HPC and I went through it and did some updates. If you've read through them, they're mostly about paint color. We don't regulate paint color, and neither does the preservation arm of DNR, so we removed a lot of that language and just updated a few things here and there to make it more modern.
Any questions for Hannah? Okay, we don't have any questions. I will entertain a motion for approval.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 2404, amending ordinance 2010-06 HPC guidelines. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Now, does HPC have the authority that if it goes through them, then we just do the second read here, or do we need to
We
suspend the
have to
rules? Okay.
suspend the rules of passing it, but yep.
Jerry, you're on that committee and Hannah Rose is on Zoom. Hannah, would you prefer, since we are getting ready to enter into a round of facade grant folks, would you prefer that we suspend the rules and pass this on the same night it was introduced?
If you could, but, you know, I'm sure I'll get some by May, but it might just help to have it buttoned up by then.
Okay. It takes unanimous consent to suspend the rules. But I will entertain a motion to suspend the rules if that's what we want to do tonight.
So moved.
I have a motion for suspension of the rules. Do I have a second? I have a second for suspension of the rules. Do we have to do roll call vote to suspend the rules?
No, it can be voiced.
Okay. All in favor of suspending the rules to entertain 2404 the same night it was introduced, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The rules have been suspended, so now I will entertain a motion for approval on second read of 2404.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of 2404 on second read on the same night it was introduced. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so that one we did first and second read on tonight. Okay. Moving on to 2405, amending the UDO. This is our favorite every month. The plan goes through the UDO. This list is pretty short, just 2 items.
Yep, kind of like the other one, this is our UDO though, pretty fluid living document. The changes we made on this, like Marissa said, there's only a couple, and the big one is about having bees. So some state and federal laws have changed that we needed to amend our ordinance to reflect. We did this last year, the year before, when it came to solar, amending to make sure that we also fit within state statute. So that's mostly what we were doing with this, but for beekeeping.
Great, and these received a favorable recommendation from the planning commission, so we are basically just doing the second read tonight. Any questions for Hannah Rose regarding bees or rentals within subdivisions, which are the 2 items that the planning commission gave a favorable recommendation to? Okay, if there aren't any questions, I'll entertain a motion for approval.
Make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
I have a motion and a second for approval of ordinance 2405, amending the UDO. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, next up, we have another favorable recommendation that came out of Planning Commission. 2406, amending the zone map for petitioner Cody Pratt. This is just a house that inadvertently got zoned as institutional, correct, Hannah Rose?
Yeah, I believe it was the elementary school's property. They realized they didn't need it and they sliced it off forever and ever ago. A house was built on it and it was never rezoned to RC, which is that zoning surrounding it. So the property owner was looking to do something with mortgage or a loan, and they wouldn't do it without the correct zoning on it, since it is not an institutional use. So it was kind of just an ministerial change to get it to what it probably should have been when the house was built.
Any additional questions for Hannah Rose? Okay, I will entertain a motion for approval of 2406, amending the zone map for Pratt. And then the petition numbers follows that 0306240224-01.
So.
I have a motion. Do I have a second for approval?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of 2406, amending the zone map for petitioner Pratt. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, and that counts the second read because it went through planning commission.
Correct, yes.
Okay, great. The last 2 items on here are a requirement as we attempt to transition to PERF 77 for our police department. The first one is abolishing the town marshal system and setting up a Metropolitan Police Commissioners Board. And the second one is establishing a police pension board. Both of these are things that we're gonna have to do if we transition to First 77, correct, Jeff?
Yes, the town has two options when it comes to its police department, what it currently uses in the town park. And the other one is the metropolitan system, and that one, in order to be First 77, you must have that metropolitan. So you have to convert from marshal to a chief and then effectively pass these two ordinances, seat these boards.
Any questions for Jeff about, we'll start with 2407, abolishing the town marshal system? Yeah, go for it. You're the resident expert on this, so
Well-
tell us.
It's interesting. It's very simple, but it sounds complicated. The nuts and bolts of it is simply this. The town is a town, so we are a town marshal's department. Technically, I'm a town marshal and all my men are deputies by state law. So we're actually making history tonight. This is kind of cool. This is a big deal. I couldn't get any of my guys because they're all young and new to understand the impact of this. So I called Paul Wilson. With that being said, in order to get in this 77 retirement, which is a much better option, it's a police and fire, it's a state thing, it's a big deal. We have to do this. What it changes for me is simply years ago in the early, mid to late 90s, the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy, along with agencies throughout the state, were trying to professionalize law enforcement. No longer was it that 70s police guy whose cousin's brother was the night shift guy. And with that said, I believe it was Paul Wilson instituted the police verbiage at the police department. It was easier with our policies. It made more sense. People understood it because it was talked about all over the place. So that's why we use the term police, sergeant, captain, patrolman. And our salary ordinance reflects that. So that's all legal. But what this does is now, no longer are we marshals and we are police officers. We are police chief. We are a sergeant. We are a lieutenant. We are whatever title given. Up until this change, if there was a disciplinary issue or if I were to try to hire or fire or something like that, you, the council, change hats and becomes what's called the safety board. Some people over, if you look at the different system, it's kind of rough being an elected official and then switching that hat. There's a lot of pressure comes with that. So one of the positives of this is you establish the police commissioners. They are not you anymore. They're appointed by you, but it's a whole different board that deals with the discipline and the hiring and the firing, et cetera. So it's just another checks and balance in the system. So this is a big step for the town of Pendleton. We're not yet a city. A lot of people don't understand that. A mayor appoints a chief. That chief works at the will of the mayor only. He could literally come in on Monday and go, "You're no longer chief." We're not to that point yet. We're still a town, but this will establish this system. And for us, it gets us into the 77 fund, which the fire department's already part of. And it's definitely a good option for the guys. It also helps in the hiring process. A lot of departments are already in this fund. So lateral transfers makes the hiring easier in the future. We had to go do the physical testing, the psychological testing. All the guys passed all that. So we've completed all that, the treadmill, it was an all-day affair down there. So I feel real good about it. The guys are excited. But again, like I said, we're kind of making history. So myself and Paul Wilson are the last living marshals of the town. So that's where we're at.
Awesome.
Yep. And I just realized that hitting that sounds like a thunderstorm.
Oh, no, kind of it does. Any questions about this?
I do have questions from the code and what's in the ordinance, but I didn't know if I needed to ask those tonight or we can talk about
And yeah, in my head, this is first read.
Okay.
Since we have a little bit of runway left before we actually opt into perf 77, and there's some things that we have to do along that road that we have left. We have to figure out how the terms to pay back the investment that we have to convert. We have to have meetings with the guys that are on, and the folks that are at the police station, to make sure that they understand what their choices are and how they convert their time and all those things. Realistically, I don't see us making the conversion until really August, July at the very earliest. So while we need to have this to go to perf 77, I think that a first read is all we really need tonight as an introduction. And then we will have some time between when we actually go to adopt. Also, we don't have the candidates 100% identified for either of these boards. And so I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves and then have a vacant board. And then that just means there's going to be a crisis where we're going to need it and then we're not going to have it. And so my point tonight was just to get these introduced and have that count as the first read. Does that jive, Jeff?
That's fine. The only thing I'd point out on the ordinance 07, you've got an effective date in there. In which you would have officially abolished the office of town marshal. If you leave that blank tonight and add it in later, could be some argument that that was a substantial change and required to suspend the rules and run it through altogether. But that's not the end of the world either. If by that point, if we're ready to go with everything, we could do that. So we could, as is, read it through first reading, and
If everybody's okay with that, I'm fine with just doing it first read.
I think
Okay.
it's-
At least this is forward progress.
Yeah.
That's all I'm looking for at this point. And we've got a little bit of runway left, so.
That gives time to Steve to answer some of the questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's gonna be a whole, like, lots of numbers get thrown at you here before too much longer on this. Reedy group that we talk about all the time has been super helpful in helping us understand all of the mechanisms that go into converting civilian perf time to 77 time, and they're taking a very close look at it. So with that, I'll entertain a motion for approval on first read of 2407, abolishing the town marshal system.
I'll make a motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of 2407, abolishing the town marshal system. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
And Chief, I hope you understand, I mean, it's, like you said, we're making history.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
we want to make sure this is done right.
And since this was only on first reading, I still have a job.
You still have responsibility.
And you're still a marshal.
We're not quite making it, we're almost making history. We're
Yeah.
making progress. We're making history. How about that?
And I just want to make it clear too, I'm 100% behind the 77 fund, being in it for almost 31 years.
Yeah,
It's a good fund, it's a solid fund, but I just had some questions.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with Steve. I mean, I'm on the 77 fund right now. I've done it for 35 years. And I'm all about 77. Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exciting thing to even be able to offer it or entertain the idea, because it hasn't always been something that we could entertain. So with that, I will entertain a motion, very similar situation, for approval of 2408, establishing the police pension board.
So I'll second.
I have a motion and a second for approval of 2408, establishing the police pension board. All, this is just first read, yep, and we're gonna stop after first read. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we have first read done on both 2407 and 2408, and we will revisit those as we edit if necessary, and as we get closer to fully adopting perf 77, we'll go back into that. Anybody in the audience for public comment? Anybody on Zoom for public comment?
Mr. Ken, did you want to speak?
Oh, what?
Woodworking, I don't care, whatever you want to talk about.
I do have a simple, complicated request.
Okay,
Okay,
The road between the middle school and high school is a 20 miles an hour zone. And I've been driving down road for the past 30 years. I never remember seeing that 20 miles an hour
Sign,
warning
okay.
sign. And then I said, is that something new they put up, or it's been there for 30 years? But what happened is when you come down the road, when you turn, my eye was looking at the middle school, and I don't see the sign, I just move on. So can we put a screening red thing on top of the sign, or put the sign
On the other side of the road, yeah.
So when I turn, maybe I'm the only one.
Are you
okay?
talking on 300 West?
Yes,
Yeah, that road between the middle school. So the next thing I see will be the police car parking up in. No, we don't have a police. So if you can put a warning or put on other sides, so that I won't get a ticket. I don't know how you got it.
Scott, do you mind taking a look at that or having
Yeah.
Ricky look at it?
Yeah, because when I make that turn, my head looking that way.
Yes, you're not gonna catch it if it's on the other side of the road. I get what you're saying. Yep, Scott?
Before we go on, we just found a Scrivener's error on the UDO amendment. What was inserted digitally was, the notes that if you turn to the back page under subdivision, it has.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Hannah's notes, not the
isn't,
actual language, so no, if you read the notes, the language will reflect what's required. So if we could just note that that's a Scrivener's error and that will be corrected.
Yeah, I left my notes in the Excel sheet.
right.
Instead of the,
Instead of the verbiage that's actually being inserted into the UDO.
So
correct.
if
I
you
mean,
read
the-
that, you know what it's supposed to say,
Yes.
and we're just.
Yeah.
Need to acknowledge that that's acceptable.
Basically, the UDO is adding language that says part of the covenants of a subdivision must establish rules on rentals such as minimum lease length, percentage of rentals allowed within a subdivision. Correct, Hannah?
Yes. It's just adding to their processes, and it can be whatever they want it to be.
Awesome. Okay. Any other public comment? Oh, Jake.
I know a couple months ago, you guys passed something about making a four-way at high.
Yes, so, okay, two things happened. We went down there to put the stop signs in and we couldn't figure out because the way that it's configured, a safe way to do it and where it can be seen. So we're holding off. And in addition, at about the same time that happened, MCOG offered at no cost to the town to put up what they call a small roundabout, mini roundabout.
Experimental.
It will be experimental. They put up a temporary one and then we'll see how it works there. And then, of course, if we end up going permanent with that, then the stop sign won't be necessary. So if we don't do the roundabout and we're convinced we have to put, and we go back to putting the four-way, which I believe needs to be there, then it's gonna be a real expensive endeavor. It means putting in some heavy poles, probably not as big as the ones we have right here for the street lights, stop signs, stoplights. But it'll actually be some heavy construction. So if anybody wants to go down there and stand there with me, I can show you Ricky's the genius. He can always figure out anything, and Ricky walked away going, I can't figure this one out. So neither could anybody else, so we delayed putting those signs in.
I know there's not much parking in town. Would you reduce a spot or two along the sidewalk there in front of the Citizens Bank? And that intersection coming in front of the east, trying to get to Milton Avenue, you're practically halfway out the road.
Is that, so if you're looking
Especially if
south,
they're
So
parked
if
along the
I'm on
high,
Street trying to
Looking
go,
south.
like going to my house back over,
Mhm.
it's safer for me to go down by Tripped Out than it is to pull out that intersection because you've got the trees there at Pritchard's Rental, plus the cars in front of Citizen Bank. And it or semi unloading.
So on the-
You're practically out into the intersection.
so it's, oh, I see what you're saying.
Basically,
So if you're
what I was trying
So you're coming from the fire station on High
Broadway down high.
and then left turn, so you're having a hard time seeing traffic coming from here, right here?
Or if you're on high, trying to turn, like I'm coming here,
Yeah.
like I have to pull out super far, especially if people are parked at the lumber yard. Because I can't see and they can't see me either.
I know there was at least one accident there last summer. We were out walking and the lady hit another lady just because she pulled so far out to try to watch the traffic.
So if we, yeah, there's also a construction flaw, the way they did that curve is not correct. So you're saying eliminate one or two spots on the lumber yard?
Well, we're saying on both sides. Jake's talking about one side, I'm talking about the other
Yeah,
side.
I think all the sides you come from.
Yeah.
Well, it's like
Alright.
either side on High Street.
Okay.
You
Why
feel like
don't you
you're
and I
about
go
to-
down there and look at it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, like if somebody's at Perky's, like it's hard to see regardless of like wherever you're at, it's hard to see when there are cars parked there just because the way that the intersection sits back too far almost, like you feel like you're out in the middle before you can really judge what to do.
And if it happens to be a delivery semi, it's impossible. to see.
It's just like
Yeah.
when we pull out here at the fire station, if there's a UPS truck delivering to the eye doctor or Kirby's office and laundromat.
Yeah.
We're out in the intersection,
Mhm.
we're hoping somebody can see us.
Right.
And I get it's a tight town, there's not a lot of room for parking and places to be, but that intersection can have shocking. It's the school traffic and as much traffic flows up and down Pendleton anyway.
Well, and it's dangerous. I mean, obviously you just talked about the pedestrians, but ask Lisa Floyd because I mean, she has a whole method to how she crosses the street there because she's an avid walker. And it is nerve wracking to try to walk across there from her house too, so. Any other public comment? Anything from anybody up here, Jerry? You've got some stuff, right?
I just wanted to mention, it's that time of year, storm season, and that town hall sells the storm alert radios. Scott and I went and looked the other day, we have some in there available, and I think they're $20, aren't they, Scott? Just everybody be aware, it's that time of year. Also, coming up the 1st of May, we won't have a meeting, so I'll go ahead and mention it. This meeting, May 3rd and 4th, I believe it is, Friday and Saturday, is the Highway 38 sale. Lots of traffic in town, so everybody be careful that weekend.
And shop.
Yeah, shop.
Be careful, but also shop.
Nightlife at the antique store.
There you
Karaoke sponsored by Stable at the Antique Store. Anything else up here? Okay, with that, I will adjourn at 7:02.